Battle of Amalek, written by Ben-Tzion Spitz, narrated by Jennifer Kahen. "The reports are true," Agag gasped from his perch on top of the low-lying desert mountain. "The Hebrew slaves have truly escaped. I did not realize there were so many. And the gold, I can see them carrying hordes of gold." "But they are so numerous," Ephaz the sorcerer commented. "How can we hope to attack them?" "We shall wait until the bulk of them have passed," Agag answered, still studying the passing Hebrew masses. "We shall then ambush their rearguard. It will be harder for such a large congregation, with women, children, and elders, to turn around and fight. By then we will have captured a respectable portion of the Egyptian loot." "But if the Hebrew God truly destroyed the Egyptian army at the sea," Ephaz questioned, "perhaps we should proceed with caution." "Do you doubt your magical abilities?" Agag challenged Ephaz. "The Egyptian sorcerers and priests had gotten fat and soft. We are warriors. Our gods are with us. We shall be quick and cunning. We shall attack the Hebrews where they are vulnerable. Do you see how they lead with their warriors? They are expecting trouble from the front. They will feel safe once they have passed their position and will not expect an ambush from behind. Do not fear, Ephaz. Were you not the one who foresaw their arrival? Did you not cast the bones that determined that today would be the best day to attack?" "Yes, my liege," Ephaz answered, puffing up his chest. "Ready the rest of the sorcerers," Agag ordered. "I shall signal to the swordsmen below to come around. I want the sorcerers to hit the Hebrews with a full range of spells at the same moment that the swordsmen engage." It was delightfully easy, Agag thought. 50 talents of gold, 200 talents of silver, countless precious vessels and stones. He didn't even lose one man. The Hebrews dropped everything at the first sign of trouble and ran like scared mice. They barely put up a fight. They just retreated to Mount Horeb. It was even reported that their leader Moses was the most fearful. He was the first one up the mountain. He decided to go for more. It was simply too easy and too tempting. If they could take so much with just an afternoon's worth of marauding, what of a whole day, or even several days, with a weak and passive slave camp to plunder? Agag started to dance, clutching the prized jewels he had kept for himself. Where was this vaunted Hebrew god? The Egyptians must have truly turned to clay if such a miserable rabble were able to free themselves and take the wealth of Egypt with them. Perhaps they should make an incursion into Egypt itself, if it was so defenseless. "It is time, my liege," Ephaz announced as the first rays of the sun appeared through the desert haze. "Excellent!" Agag rubbed his hands in anticipation. "We shall commence a frontal attack on their position as planned. I want a ring of warriors surrounding your sorcerers at the center position, and columns of spearmen, swordsmen, and archers on the left and right flanks. I shall lead the middle position with the rest of the camel riders." Agag quickly mounted his waiting camel, joined the 24 riders standing at attention, and together they rode to the front and center of the assembled Amalekite army. "Sons of Amalek!" Agag called out in a booming voice from atop his camel. "You may have thought that we did well yesterday, but today's prospects are even greater. I promised you each a talent of gold, and a pretty Hebrew slave girl too." The Amalekite army whistled, laughed, and banged their shields together. One soldier called out, "Agag, I want 2 slaves." "You can have as many slaves as you can grab," Agag responded. "Take prisoners, young ones." The army laughed some more. Agag turned his camel to face the Hebrews, raised his sword, and proclaimed, "Amalekites, for wealth and glory! For wealth and glory!" The Amalekite army thundered. Agag and the camel riders trotted towards the Hebrew camp, followed on foot by a tremendous Amalekite horde. As Agag approached the Hebrews, he discerned a long row of spears, shields, and swords gleaming in the morning light. He stopped his camel and signaled for the army to stop. "What have we here?" Agag whistled in surprise. "The Hebrews have some teeth after all. Even better. We should have to work a bit for our keep." "Charge!" Agag galloped at full force into the Hebrew line. Suddenly, a middle-aged, blonde-haired warrior sprinted from the Hebrew line to intercept Agag. The blonde warrior slashed at Agag. Agag barely caught the edge of the sword on his shield. The sword continued its slashing motion, cutting the harness of Agag's camel and dumping Agag unceremoniously onto the hard desert floor. Looking up, Agag noticed a tall, imposing man standing on the top of Mount Horeb, with a staff in his hand, arms raised high. For the first time in his reign, Agag trembled with fear. The blonde warrior continued to hack at the rest of the camel riders, weaving in between and underneath the camels. He moved like a whirlwind, killing one rider after another in quick, fluid motions. The blonde warrior was now joined by 6 other Hebrew swordsmen. "Joshua! Behind you!" cried an older, red-headed warrior to the blonde whirlwind. Without looking, Joshua stepped backwards and gutted his would-be attacker. He then swiftly moved on to his next target. "Thank you, Nachshon!" Joshua called back. Within minutes, Agag's camel's division had been annihilated. The rest of the Hebrew squadron moved up to engage the oncoming Amalekites. The swords rang and clanked upon the shields, while a cloud of dust from the scuffling enveloped the fighters. Agag scrambled quickly to his front line and found the commander of the archers. "Quickly! Aim for those warriors at the rest of the unit before they all engaged!" Agag ordered. "Fire!" "Shields!" Joshua screamed, and the entire Hebrew army took a step back from their adversaries and raised their shields over their heads. After the arrows bounced harmlessly off their shields, the Hebrews attacked with renewed vigor. Agag clenched his teeth. "It did not work. I must find Ephaz." Agag found the sorcerers surrounded by the protective circle of swordsmen. "Ephaz, what is happening?" Agag asked hurriedly. "Where did these whirling dervishes come from? Why are you not doing anything?" Ephaz looked at Agag as if coming out of a dream. He wiped the sweat off his brow and caught his breath. He pointed towards the top of the mountain. "That is Moses up there. He is able to stop whatever magic we attempt to throw at the Hebrew troops. I have never come across anyone so powerful. No matter how arcane or exotic the spell, Moses is able to overcome it." Agag looked bewildered. "What does that mean? How can one man overpower all of you?" Agag then noticed that the Hebrew warriors were continually looking up at Moses, as if he gave them strength or purpose. "He is the key," Agag pointed out as well. "This Moses is truly the Redeemer. But he is still one man, and we can break him. Do not give up. Have all of the sorcerers focus on bringing him down. Do not waste your spells on the troops. Everyone together, keep hammering away. He is only human, and he must eventually tire." Agag ran to the left flank, which seemed to be making more progress. He intermittently looked up to see how Moses was faring. Other Amalekites saw Agag's gaze and started looking up frequently as well. Soon the entire Amalekite army was alternately shifting its gaze between Moses and the sorcerers. They realized that the battle was being waged on that plain too. Joshua, Nachshon, and the other dexterous warriors were decimating the right flank. Though Joshua was covered with blood and grime, his skill was such that there was not one scratch upon his body. The left flank, with Agag in the lead, was standing up to the Hebrew warriors. Then, suddenly, Moses fell. He could not be seen any longer on the mountaintop. Ephaz looked across the battlefield to Agag and waved a tired sign of success. "Yes!" Agag cried. "The Redeemer is down. Let us press the advantage." A cheer went up from the Amalekites. They sensed the Hebrews weakening and attacked with greater force. The Hebrews looked to the mountain, but did not see Moses. The Hebrew warriors seemed disheartened. They moved slower, without their dervish speed or deadly accuracy. Agag and his men broke through the left flank and headed towards the unprotected Hebrew camp. "Fall back!" Joshua commanded, pointing towards the Amalekites breaking through. He yelled, "Stop them! Regroup in the middle! Form a semicircle!" Joshua ran at breakneck speed across the battlefield. He vaulted himself and grabbed hold of Agag's ankles before he could enter the Hebrew camp. They rolled around on the dusty ground, but quickly got on their feet with their swords in their hands, facing each other. "Ah, the blonde whirlwind himself!" Agag spat the dust from his mouth. "Joshua, I believe I overheard." Joshua answered with a quick slash aimed at Agag's neck. Agag deftly parried and returned with a brutal overhead cut to Joshua's arm. Joshua deflected and attacked. The pair moved back and forth. Their sword skills were evenly matched. "Where did a slave like you learn to fight?" Agag asked as he blocked a twisting cut to his abdomen. I was with the Israelite tribe of Ephraim when we attempted to escape Egypt 30 years ago, Joshua answered with heavy breathing. You made a mistake to think all of us were bricklayers. True, but I see that without your Moses, none of you are as fast or as deadly. Agag looked up again to make sure Moses had not returned. Is he your only magician? Moses is not a magician, Joshua growled as they each held onto the other's sword's arm, their swords meeting inches away from their faces. Joshua then pushed forcefully against Agag's sword and released him at the same time, sending Agag back a few steps. Moses is the prophet of God, not some mere charlatan. My mistake, loyal Joshua, Agag teased. But it seems this prophet of yours has disappeared. And look, my troops are defeating your warriors. I see Hebrew blood is just as red as ours. We are the chosen of God, Joshua slashed angrily. A heathen like you would not understand. Oh, I understand very well. Agag stepped out of reach of the sword. I understand your claim to be the favorite of some higher power. But you are fools. You are being manipulated by charismatic leaders that fabricate fables and myths from the past to ensnare your minds. The Hebrew warriors were now suffering terribly at the hands of the Amalekites. They were being pushed inexorably back to the Hebrew camp. The semicircle of defenders was getting smaller and being spread thin while trying to stop the Amalekite advance. Joshua ended up behind enemy lines. Other Amalekite swordsmen approached Agag and Joshua. Agag motioned that he wanted Joshua to himself. You are a good fighter. Agag lowered his sword slightly. If you join us, I will make it worth your while. You do not know us nor understand us. Joshua raised his arm, leveling his sword towards Agag's face. Perhaps, but I know that soon all the wealth of Egypt shall be mine. Agag smiled deviously. Delivered very generously by its Hebrew slaves. I wonder if Egypt would reward us for returning their slaves, or perhaps we should make use of them ourselves. I do not know what we would do with all the old ones, though. What did they have them do in Egypt? As God is my witness, Joshua spat out, sword still ready to attack. You shall not succeed. If you had seen or comprehended the powers that are at work, you would never have even dreamed of touching us. For this, I am certain your damnation will be eternal. Out of the corner of his eye, Agag noticed movement on top of the mountain. Moses was up once again. He was supported by a man on either side, each one holding his arms up. His long staff waved in the air like a flag of battle. A cry of joy came from the Hebrews as they beheld their rejuvenated leader. Suddenly, it was the Amalekite army being pressed backward. Agag abruptly stepped back from Joshua and yelled at the surrounding swordsmen in a panic. Kill him! Kill the Hebrew! Half a dozen swords stabbed at the place where Joshua had been standing. 3 swordsmen fell dead. Joshua was outside the circle, weaving and whirling and slashing again. Agag absconded to his sorcerers. Joshua cut down the rest of the swordsmen and chased after Agag. Joshua was met by Nachshon and a few others who had broken through the Amalekite line. For a moment I thought we had lost you, Nachshon said, clamping Joshua's arm. I never lost faith. Joshua squeezed back. How are we doing? The Amalekite line is in disarray, Nachshon said with a confident smile. The danger has passed. That is good, Joshua responded while still running. Let us dispatch their leader and the sorcerers, and then we'll deal with the rest. Joshua and the others reached the circle of swordsmen guarding Agag and the sorcerers. You no longer seem so confident, Joshua called out to Agag. You are a rebel! Agag cried from behind his swordsman. You are nothing! That gold should have been mine! This is not about the gold, Joshua explained while directing the soldiers to surround the Amalekites. You dare to attack the people of God, the children of Israel. The people of the world were in grave fear of us for what our God did to the Egyptians, but you have shown us to be mere mortals, and you have brought into question the omnipotence of God. You have made us bleed. Now other nations may risk attacking us too. For that, you and the name of your people shall be blotted out from under the heavens. Joshua signaled, and the Hebrew warriors started whirling and bringing down one Amalekite after another. The swordsmen were the first to fall, followed by the sorcerers. Eyes wide with fright, Ephaz the sorcerer urged Agag. Lay a dying curse on them, my liege. We should not fall so ignominiously. Yes, a dying curse, Agag looked at Joshua with dispassionate eyes. "With my dying breath," Agag announced, "I call on the forces of the world. Nay, on the Hebrew God himself," he chuckled dryly, "that my progeny and the Amalekite heirs, be they physical or spiritual, shall be an adversary to the children of Israel until the end of days." Joshua reached Ephaz and Agag, and in one swift, powerful motion beheaded both of them. "Did you hear his curse?" Nachshon asked Joshua, standing in a ring of dead Amalekites. "Yes," Joshua answered solemnly, "and I fear God will keep him to his word." This has been Battle of Amalek, written by Ben-Tzion Spitz, narrated by Jennifer Kahen.